My sister didn't just dox me, she posted my address to thousands of strangers and told them to teach me a lesson. And the worst part, she did it while standing in the middle of a $3 million open house I was hosting, disguised in a wig and sunglasses live streaming as she called me a thief. But none of that hurt as much as the envelope that slid under my apartment door 3 weeks earlier. Roe and Kensington estate attorneys. Inside was the truth my family never meant for me to see. My trust fund 28 years of supposed growth was gone, drained, used. But what they didn't know was, they'd just armed me. Before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever trusted your family, only to find out they were the ones cutting you the deepest. This story, it goes places. And you're going to want to stay for every second of it. I didn't grow up thinking my parents were villains. If anything, I grew up thinking I was the problem. When I was a kid, our house in the Seattle suburbs always smelled like lemon cleaner and my mother's perfume. Monica liked things that looked good in pictures, shiny countertops matching throw pillows. A bowl of fake lemons on the kitchen table we were absolutely not allowed to touch. Brianna fit perfectly into that picture. She was loud and pretty and charming, the kind of child strangers stopped in the grocery store to compliment. She should be in commercials, they'd say, and Mom would laugh and toss her hair like the idea had never occurred to her. Meanwhile, I'd be standing right there, one hand on the cart, the other gripping the grocery list invisible. It didn't feel cruel at first. It just felt normal. At 10 years old, the biggest thing in my world was a cartoon mouse. I remember the day my dad came home with the Disney World brochures, like it's burned into my brain. The late afternoon light was slanting across the beige living room carpet. The TV was murmuring some game show no one was really watching. Gregory walked in, dropped his briefcase by the door, and fanned out glossy pictures across the coffee table. Brianna squealed so loud my ears rang. "No way! Are you serious? We're going to Disney?" Mom clapped her hands together, eyes sparkling. "Surprise, baby. Merry early Christmas." I stood at the edge of the couch looking down at the pictures. Cinderella Castle, fireworks, kids with mouse ears and smiles. So wide they almost didn't look real. "Wow," I said. That's amazing." Mom glanced over like she'd forgotten I was there. "Oh, Lauren, honey," she said. "We could only get one room and it's really tight." "Your dad tried everything, didn't you, Greg?" My father didn't look up from the papers he was pretending to study. "Hotel's booked solid," he said. 2 double beds. It's barely enough for the 3 of us, as is." My cheeks burned. "Right," I said quickly. "Of course, that's okay." Diane and Frank took me for that week. Their house was smaller, older, full of squeaky floorboards and mismatched furniture. Instead of fireworks, I watched Maya practice cartwheels in the backyard. Instead of princesses, I met the neighbor kids who just walked in without knocking. At the time, I told myself it was fine. We weren't rich. We couldn't afford everything. It made sense someone had to stay. It made sense it was me. A few months later, back at my parents' house, I was using Mom's laptop to finish a book report when a notification popped up in the corner. Reservation confirmation, Lake Buena Vista Resort. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. I clicked. Standard suite, 2 queen beds, maximum occupancy 4. The room seemed to tilt just a little. I'd been left behind not because of logistics, not because of money, but because 3 of them was the perfect picture and 4 of us was not. I closed the tab and finished my book report. I didn't know it then, but that quiet swallow, the decision to say nothing, would become my specialty. Once I noticed it, I saw the pattern everywhere. Brianna's birthday parties were chaos and balloons, and rented bounce houses in the backyard. Mine were dinner at a chain restaurant, the server sticking a candle in whatever dessert Mom felt like sharing. When we both brought home report cards, my A in algebra was expected and barely commented on. Brianna's B+ in English earned her a trip to the mall and a new pair of shoes. "You're the smart one," Mom would say. "Bree's more creative. You know how it is." I did know how it was. Smart meant you don't need anything from us. Creative meant we will move heaven and earth to make sure you have every opportunity. If there was one person who ever looked at me and seemed to see the whole picture, it was my grandmother. Evelyn wasn't warm in the way Diane is warm. She wasn't the hugging type. But there was a steadiness about her that made me feel for brief moments like I existed in more than just Brianna's shadow. She'd sit with me in the den during holidays, both of us watching the chaos swirl around us like we were at the eye of a storm. "You got into AP Chem?" she'd ask. And when I nodded, she'd give this small, satisfied smile. "Good, use that brain. Don't let anyone tell you you're less than." The year I turned 16, she pulled me into the hallway where the family photos lined the wall. Brianna's school pictures in varied frames, my own tucked in between, like afterthoughts. I've done something practical, she said quietly. You know how I like practical. She told me about the trust. Money from a life insurance policy, some investments enough to give you a cushion when you're older. It was in my name, but my father would manage it until I turned 28. I know Gregory, she said, and the way she said his name told me more than any story. He likes to think he's the smartest man in the room. The attorneys say this is the safest way. If at any point you feel something isn't right, you fight. You hear me? I nodded, half proud, half confused. Back then, 28 felt like 1,000 years away. I didn't know it then, but that conversation would become the ground I'd have to stand on when everything else crumbled. College was supposed to be my way out. For a while, I believed it. I chose the University of Washington because it looked good on paper and was just far enough from home that I didn't have to hear Brianna through the wall anymore. Close enough that my parents could still brag about keeping me focused. My mornings were lectures, my afternoons shelving books in the campus library, my nights slinging burgers at a diner off the interstate. My parents called it building character. Lots of kids work through college, Lauren, my dad said, whenever I hinted that money was tight. You've got that trust coming. Consider this practice. Meanwhile, Brianna was studying communications at a private college in California, posting palm trees and rooftop pools and brunches I couldn't spell. Mom reposted every photo with captions like, "So proud of our girl chasing her dreams." When I made the dean's list, I texted a picture of the letter to the family group chat. Monica replied with a single thumbs up. I told myself it didn't matter, the trust existed. The safety net was there growing quietly for my future. I could endure cheap noodles and secondhand textbooks because there was always that imagined day when I'd finally get to breathe. That day looked different at 22, sitting on the stained carpet of my off-campus apartment with an eviction notice crumpled in my fist. Outside rain slapped the window late on a Sunday. Rent 3 weeks past due. Pay by Friday or vacate. My banking app showed $43.17. I'd sold my TV. I'd picked up every shift I could at the diner. My grades were starting to slide from exhaustion. Calling my parents felt like swallowing glass. Dad answered on the third ring. "Yeah, hey," I said. "Do you have a second?" "Make it quick." I told him about the rent, the notice, the extra shifts, how I'd cut everything and still come up short. So I finished. I was wondering if there's any way to access the trust early. Just a loan. I'll pay it back once I graduate and start working. Silence stretched long enough that I thought the call had dropped. When he finally spoke, his voice was so cold it didn't sound like my father. You want to know what happens to ungrateful children who start poking around at things they don't understand. The back of my neck went hot. "I'm not ungrateful," I said. "I'm asking about my money, Nana's money." I am the trustee," he snapped. "I decide if and when that money is released. If you give me any reason to doubt your judgment, I can petition to have the funds frozen. I can ask a judge to review your mental stability. I can make sure you don't see a cent until you're 50, or ever." Each word landed like a slap. "I'm behind on rent," I whispered. "I'm not gambling or doing drugs. I'm just trying not to get kicked out of school." "Figure it out," he said. "If you can't handle a little pressure now, you're going to fall apart in the real world. Don't call me again about this." The line went dead. For a long minute, all I heard was my own breathing and the drip of the faucet in the kitchen. I didn't cry. I sat there until my legs went numb, then got up, put on my diner uniform, and went to work. I picked up a graveyard shift. I agreed to cover for a coworker on Saturday. I graded freshman essays for $10 an hour. I ate free employee meals and told myself I wasn't hungry. I paid the rent on Friday at 2:46 a.m., hitting submit with shaking fingers. The next afternoon, I called Diane. She didn't ask why my voice sounded wrong. She said, "Come over." Her house smelled like spaghetti sauce and lavender lotion. Frank was out on a job. Maya was at a sleepover. It was us at the kitchen table, steam curling up from our mugs. I told her everything. The notice, the call, the threat about having me declared unstable. When I finished, she sat back, eyes bright with anger that had nothing to do with me. "I offered to take you once," she said quietly. "What do you mean after Evelyn set up that trust? Your parents were furious she put it in your name only. They ranted about how unfair it was, how you didn't need that kind of temptation." Diane shook her head. "I told them if they didn't want the responsibility, you could come live with us. We'd make room." Frank backed me up. "Your dad lost it. Said I was undermining his authority. Your mother cried and said I was trying to steal her child." I stared at the tablecloth. "I didn't know that." "Of course you didn't," she said. "They didn't want you to know you had options." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You are not crazy, Lauren," she said. "You are not ungrateful. You're a young woman being financially strangled by people who like control more than they like fairness. Her words sank into me. I didn't know it then, but that conversation planted a seed. It would take years and a cream envelope from a law firm to make it bloom. By the time I graduated and moved to Seattle, I told myself the worst was behind me. I had a job, a tiny studio, and a dream of eventually selling luxury homes overlooking Lake Washington. I even convinced myself my family's neglect had been character building. A lie, but a comfortable one. For a while, cutting contact to occasional holidays helped. I learned to breathe outside their shadow. But toxic people don't like when their oxygen source stops flowing. Every conflict that shaped what came next started small, tiny cracks that spread like fractures in glass. The first one came on a quiet Wednesday morning. I'd just finished staging a downtown condo, hands still smelling faintly of lemon cleaner, when my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Sweetheart, did you get your little check yet?" Little check. As if the remains of my grandmother's trusts, my trust, were pocket change found in the lint trap. I stared at the message so long the screen dimmed. My throat tightened, heat burning behind my eyes. She knew exactly what she was doing. She always did: diminish, decorate, deflect. My reply was one word: yes. Her answer came instantly. "Good, treat yourself to something nice. Maybe a new outfit for your showings. Remember, presentation matters. Not what happened. Not that doesn't sound right. Not you should talk to the attorneys." Just a command dressed as motherly advice. I didn't respond. I shoved my phone into my bag and told myself I wouldn't cry in an empty condo. But something small and brittle cracked inside anyway. I didn't know it then, but this text would be the first domino. A week later, I found out the next one was already tipping. It was a Sunday evening, the kind where rain streaked the windows and the city lights blurred behind droplets. I was microwaving leftover pasta when Facebook buzzed on my laptop. Tag the Hayes clan. The photo hit me like a slap. My parents, Brianna, her little boy. All of them smiling in front of turquoise water and a resort cabana that probably cost more per night than my rent. Cabo San Lucas. The caption read, "Cabo vibes with the Hayes crew. Nothing like family time. Living our best life." Family time. Living our best life. My chest tightened. I scrolled through the album: beach dinners, spa robes, boat trips, cocktails with umbrellas. Brianna's heels sinking into perfect white sand, while my dad wrapped an arm around her shoulders. My mom's oversized sunglasses and champagne glass. And not a single empty seat in any photo. Plenty of room for me. But there I was, not invited, not told, not even acknowledged. Again. The trust money paid for this. I felt it in my bones. The stolen years, the stolen comfort, the stolen safety. The microwave beeped, but I couldn't move. My whole body felt submerged, weighted, muffled, drowning in humiliation I'd carried since childhood. I closed the laptop. The room went dark, but that photo dug into my skin like a thorn. I didn't know it then, but it would soon become the spark that lit everything else on fire. 2 days after the Cabo album disaster disguised itself as a cheerful ringtone. Mom calling. My stomach dropped. I answered anyway. Old habits have a way of surviving even when everything else dies. "Hi, honey." Her voice bubbled like sparkling water. "How's my hardworking girl?" I gripped the phone tighter. "Fine. Busy." "Oh, wonderful. Listen, I have good news." Good news in my family always meant bad news for me. "We're going to Aspen for Christmas. Isn't that magical?" Snowflakes and pine trees flickered through my mind. Images from childhood Christmas movies I watched alone, while Brianna opened expensive gifts from my parents. "That's nice," I said. "We want you to come with us," she announced like a queen offering mercy. My heart stuttered. "Really?" She sighed, dramatic and wounded, as if my doubt offended her. "Of course, sweetie. We're family." The word tasted metallic. She continued, airy and casual. "It'll be 4 nights. Skiing, hot chocolate, family dinners." Brianna already picked out matching outfits for the group photos. There it was. The real purpose. Photos. Appearances. Optics. I wasn't a daughter. I was a prop. What would I need to do? I asked, though dread thickened my voice. "Well," she said brightly, "since we're renting a beautiful villa, it's only fair that everyone contributes. Just $2,000. You can wire it by Friday. $2,000. For people who drained more than $100,000 from my trust and spent it on vacations I wasn't invited to." Then she added the knife twist. "Oh, and Brianna has been invited to several influencer events at the resort. You know how important networking is for her. So you'll need to watch little Jonah in the evenings. Just a few hours." I blinked. "You want me to pay and babysit?" "Don't make it sound so ugly," Lauren, Mom snapped suddenly. "We're offering you a chance to be part of the family again. Brianna really wants you there. I let out a short, humorless laugh. No, I said quietly. A beat of silence. What did you say? No, I'm not going. And I'm not sending you money. The temperature on the line dropped 10 degrees. Lauren Hayes, she hissed, voice suddenly sharp. You will not speak to me like that. I'm done being used. I said, my voice trembling but steady. I saw the Cabo photos. You didn't invite me, but now you need my money and free childcare. No, you ungrateful. I hung up. The phone buzzed immediately, Dad calling. I blocked him. Then Brianna, blocked. My hands shook, adrenaline flooding me so fast, I had to sit down. I'd said no for the first time in my life. I didn't know it then, but that one word would change everything. For 3 days, silence hung over my apartment like dust in stale air. No calls, no messages, no knocks. Until the 4th night when I drove to Diane's house for dinner. I walked into the smell of pork chops and rosemary, and suddenly my throat tightened with something fragile and painful. Frank slid the best cut onto my plate. That one's for you, he said, simple as breathing. My phone buzzed. A deposit. $42,000, my commission on a commercial property I'd been fighting for months. I stared at the number, more than triple what my parents left me from a trust fund, meant for my future. Diane glanced at me. Everything okay? Tears threatened, but I smiled. Yeah, I whispered. Everything's finally okay. Over dinner, the warmth around the table wrapped around me like a blanket I didn't know I'd been missing. Diane talking about Maya's finals. Frank complaining about lumber prices. A normal, imperfect, loving family. It filled a hole so deep I'd stopped believing it could close. And then came the night Maya accidentally blew my entire world open. We were sitting on the deck of the Maldives villa, a trip I'd booked impulsively, defiantly, lovingly with my commission and airline miles, when she filmed her now famous TikTok. Her voice steady, her eyes fierce. My cousin Lauren got screwed over by her parents. They stole her inheritance, used her as a babysitter, left her out of vacations she paid for. She finally said no, and they snapped. She didn't show my face, didn't name anyone. But the story was enough. By morning, it had 2 million views. By nightfall, 5 million. And then the online tabloids picked it up. Woman takes chosen family on luxury trip after parents drain trust fund. The headline hit like lightning. My phone exploded with messages. Some supportive, some cruel, some from people I went to high school with. But the most shocking message wasn't from strangers. It was from Brianna. She forwarded an email from Baby Bloom Brands, one of her biggest sponsors. Termination notice. Effective immediately. Her rage poured through the screen like acid. You ruined me. This was $15,000 a month. I have a child, you heartless bitch. Fix this or I swear you'll regret it. I stared at the message until my vision doubled. I didn't reply. I didn't know it then, but this was only the beginning of their retaliation. Because when Brianna gets desperate, she gets vicious. The next storm hit 2 days later. Maya came running across the villa deck, her face pale. Lauren, you need to see this. She thrust her phone at me. Brianna's Instagram. A video, well-produced, perfect lighting, perfect makeup, perfect lies. I need to address something, she began, voice trembling with fake vulnerability. My sister, sorry, my estranged sister, has been spreading lies about our family. She's manipulated things to hurt us, to hurt my son. She held up her phone, played doctored audio clips, voicemails edited to make me sound selfish, cold, manipulative. Then the caption, since she wants to play dirty, here's her contact info. Let her know what you think about betrayal. My stomach dropped so fast I tasted metal. She had doxed me. My phone started ringing instantly. Unknown numbers, blocked numbers, voicemails full of screaming, text messages telling me to die. The breeze around me suddenly felt cold. The ocean too loud, the world too bright. I couldn't breathe. Diane appeared beside me, placing a hand between my shoulder blades. Honey, look at me. But I couldn't tear my eyes away from the screen. My sister had unleashed strangers on me like hounds. I didn't know it then, but this was the moment everything would tip. Because people like Brianna don't understand consequences. Not until they crash straight into them. The Maldives should have been the safest place on earth. A bubble of blue water and sunsets so beautiful, they made your chest ache. But after Brianna's doxing video, paradise turned thin and sharp like glass under bare feet. I handed my phone to Frank. My hands were shaking too hard to hold it, and he just nodded, jaw tightening the way it did when he was ready to fight a man barehanded. Turn it off, he said softly. I can't. What if? Turn it off, Lauren. You don't need to see any more of that. I powered it down. The screen went black. My pulse didn't slow. That night, I didn't sleep. Every shadow outside the villa looked like danger. Every soft thump of wood on water made my heart race. I sat on the edge of the bed with the ocean breeze creeping through the curtains and tried not to fall apart. Around 3 a.m., Diane knocked gently on my door. "You awake?" I nodded. She sat beside me, shoulders brushing mine, warm and steady. "This isn't your fault," she murmured. I laughed, short, broken, humorless. "It feels like it is." "She's unraveling," Diane said. "Bullies always do when the target stops playing along." But Brianna wasn't just unraveling, she was escalating. The next morning, Maya was on edge. She kept checking her phone, then hiding the screen whenever I looked. I knew why. She was getting messages, two strangers telling her she was brainwashing me, calling her names I won't repeat. At breakfast, she finally cracked. "I should delete the video," she said quietly. "I didn't mean all this." "No," I told her. "You told the truth. You saved me. But you're getting death threats." I placed a hand on hers. "I've lived 28 years bleeding quietly. I'm done hiding. This isn't your fault." Her eyes welled up. She nodded. But the guilt wrapped around her shoulders like a heavy coat. Later that afternoon, while Frank napped and Diane read by the deck, Maya sat beside me, feet dangling above the turquoise water. "You know," she said, twisting a scrunchie around her wrist. "A brand reached out to me." I raised an eyebrow. "What kind of brand?" "A small jewelry company." She smiled nervously. "They said they liked my message. They called it empowering. They want to send me stuff to promote." I blinked, surprised and strangely proud. "That's amazing." "But Brianna says I'm exploiting you for clout," she whispered. I snorted. "The woman who live streams every meltdown and sells postpartum tea codes is accusing you of exploiting something." She cracked a small smile. "Besides," I added, bumping her shoulder, "you didn't exploit anything. You told the truth. People connected with it. That's power." She let out a shaky breath. "Yeah, okay." I didn't know it then, but Maya's brand offer would be another spark my family couldn't stand. They only liked attention when they controlled it. On day 5, things escalated again. I was lying on a lounger, finally feeling my body relax for the first time since the envelope arrived, when Diane walked out holding her phone delicately between 2 fingers, like it was contaminated. "You need to see this," she said. My stomach clenched. It was Brianna again. Another video, but this one wasn't calm or polished or calculated. It was frantic eyes, red mascara, smudged hair, messy, her usual soft filters gone. "This is harassment," she said, voice shrill. "My sister is turning the internet against me. She's ruining my career. She's ruining my life. And she doesn't even care about Jonah. She left him. She abandoned him because she's jealous of me." The words punched me in the chest. She was dragging her own child into this now. "She needs help," Diane whispered. "Help. The kind that involved therapy and boundaries and accountability. 3 things my family avoided like sunlight." But then Brianna's voice sharpened. "And by the way, Lauren, if you're watching this, your precious trust fund, Dad told me everything. You're delusional if you think Grandma wanted you to have it all. He only took what he needed. You should be grateful he managed it for you." My breath caught. "Told me everything." What did that mean? I replayed the line 3 times. Something twisted behind her words. Something she wasn't supposed to reveal. Frank leaned in. "What did she say?" I shook my head. I don't know yet." But something deep in my chest whispered, "Yes, you do." Later that night, after Diane and Frank went to bed, and Maya was editing her Maldives vlog, I sat alone on the deck and considered those words again. Dad told me everything. Everything. Like what? That he used the trust as a personal ATM, that he drained it systematically, that he pulled money out to cover something, the thought hit so hard I nearly dropped my drink. The personal loan to Hayes Enterprises line in the trust statement. He hadn't been subtle. I'd just been too scared to believe what it meant. He'd sunk money into his company, into saving himself, not me. The rage that surged through me was hot and nauseating, burning under my ribs like acid. I didn't sleep again that night. When we flew home, 20 hours of travel didn't dull the dread sitting low in my stomach. I tried to pretend I was okay for Diane's sake, but my eyes kept drifting to my phone, still powered off, still a grenade waiting to explode. Frank drove me the last stretch to my apartment. He insisted. I didn't argue. "I'll help you grab your bags," he said. But the moment he opened the trunk, the front door of my building slammed open. 3 figures stormed out. My blood froze. Gregory, Monica, Brianna, they looked furious, desperate, unhinged. What the hell Frank started, but they were already marching across the parking lot. Brianna shoved her phone in my face. "Apologize, right now. You're going to fix this." Gregory jabbed a finger at me. Do you have any idea what you started? Do you have any idea the legal trouble you've put this family in? Monica was crying loud, dramatic sobs designed for an audience. We tried to talk to you. We tried to make peace. And this is how you repay us. Frank stepped between us like a brick wall. Back up, he said. Now, Gregory sneered. This is family business. Stay out of it. Frank didn't even blink. You're not her family. The air snapped with tension. Brianna lunged forward, shoving her phone practically against my cheek. Look at what you did, she screamed. My sponsors dropped me. People are calling me a liar, a bad mother. Fix it, Lauren. Fix it now, or I swear. You swear, what Frank growled, stepping closer. Threaten her again. Brianna stumbled back. Gregory grabbed her arm. Stop recording. No, she snapped. People need to see what she's really like. Then Gregory did something I didn't expect. He turned to me, eyes cold and gleaming with something darker than anger. You're not going to get away with this, he said. You think you can embarrass me? Tear apart this family. You think you can slander us online and walk away? I swallowed hard. I didn't slander anyone. You think you're safe because you have friends? He spat the word like poison. You've made a mistake, and I'm going to fix it. Frank moved faster than I'd ever seen him move. He planted one hand flat on Gregory's chest and shoved him back a full step. You lay one finger on her, Frank said, voice low, and so help me what? Gregory barked. You'll hit me. Go ahead. You'll just make this easier for my lawyer. Frank smiled, not warmly, cold, sharp. You're not the only one who can call the police, Greg. It spiraled from there. Gregory shouting threats, Monica wailing about betrayal, Brianna live streaming again even as her mascara smeared. Me trying to get words out but unable to over the white noise in my ears. Frank stepping forward, steady as a fortress. Diane showed up 10 minutes later. She must have driven 90 on the freeway and took one look at the scene before pulling out her phone. She dialed the police. I'd never seen my family so unhinged. Not when I left home, not when I moved states, not even when Grandma died. They didn't want me back. They wanted control back. But the moment the police cruiser rolled into the lot, lights off, but presence unmistakable, all three of them faltered. Gregory straightened his shirt, trying to look composed. Monica dabbed her eyes, suddenly delicate. Brianna hid the phone behind her back. The officers separated us and took statements. Frank spoke calmly, Diane firmly, I shakily. The Hayes trio stumbled over their stories, contradicting each other, trying to paint themselves as victims. But the officers had enough. Ma'am, sir, one officer said, addressing my parents, you've been warned. If you return here again without permission, we will arrest you for trespassing. Gregory's jaw locked, rage simmering behind his carefully blank expression. This isn't over, he murmured, but he still stepped back, still walked away, still got into the car. Brianna flipped me off through the window, then they were gone. For a moment, the parking lot was silent. Then I started shaking so hard my knees buckled. Frank caught me before I hit the pavement. You're okay, he whispered. You're not alone. And for the first time in my life, I believed him. But the worst escalation was still coming. Because 3 days later, after the police report was filed, and Patricia Rowe had started drafting the restraining order paperwork, the fallout hit my job. I walked into Clark Realty, ready for the biggest open house of my career, a $3 million listing overlooking the water, and noticed several coworkers whispering, glancing at me, then darting their eyes away. At first, I thought it was normal office gossip. But then my boss, Edward Clark himself, gestured me into his office with a tight, unreadable expression. Close the door, he said. My chest constricted. I sat. He folded his hands on the desk. Did you post anything about your family online? No, I said immediately. Absolutely not. He studied me for a long moment, because someone else did. My blood went cold. We received 6 emails this morning, he continued. Links, screenshots, a video claiming your... He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Emotionally unstable, violent, untrustworthy with clients. I felt my heart drop against my ribs. My sister, I whispered. He didn't react, I figured. Still, I need to know. Can this affect your performance today? No, I said, voice steady even as panic churned inside me. I promise you, I can handle the open house. He held my gaze another second, then nodded. Good, because this is the biggest showing of your career. Don't let them get in here. He tapped his temple. I won't, I said. But I didn't know, not yet, that the open house would be where everything finally snapped, where the escalation would end, and the war would begin. The morning of the open house felt wrong before anything actually happened. Seattle had that cold, misty light that makes every window look like frosted glass. I arrived 3 hours early, my blazer pressed my hair pinned back, my hands clenched a little too tight around the keys to the $3 million waterfront listing. The luxury home sat on a hill overlooking Lake Washington, floor-to-ceiling windows, heated concrete floors, a floating staircase that gleamed like sculpture. This was supposed to be my career-making moment. It didn't feel like one. Inside, the caterers were already plating hors d'oeuvres, little tartlets arranged like jewels. Security stood by the entry, suited, silent, efficient. I walked each room twice, then 3 times, touching the edges of counters, smoothing invisible wrinkles on the staging blankets. Noise kept leaking into my thoughts, echoes of my mother's last voicemail. Brianna's screams, the pounding fists on my apartment door. "You think you can get away with this? This isn't over. You'll regret this." I shook it off and kept moving. By 1:45 p.m., guests began arriving, wealthy couples, investors, real estate scouts. I greeted them with the voice I'd spent years polishing, steady, warm, confident. I could feel the eyes of my boss, Edward Clark, tracking me from the far corner of the living room. I needed today to go perfectly. For the first 30 minutes, it did. I walked clients through the gourmet kitchen, highlighting quartz counters and Miele appliances. I led them across the white oak floors into the open living room, the lake glittering behind floor-to-ceiling glass. I narrated the house like a symphony conductor, each room a movement, each selling point a note. "You have a stunning view of the water here," I told a couple from Bellevue. "And the glass is UV treated, so you'll never need to worry about furniture fading." The husband nodded, impressed. The wife asked about the smart home integration. I pulled up the control panel seamlessly. They loved it. I felt myself relax. Maybe, just maybe, today would be mine. I guided the couple upstairs, stopping in the primary suite to showcase the bathroom. Another set of footsteps approached. It was Marcus, head of security, expression tight. "Miss Hayes," he murmured. "Need a word." Fear shot through me like a needle. "What's wrong?" He leaned in. 2 women slipped past check-in. Fake names, sunglasses, hats. We didn't catch it until they entered the living room. Blood roared in my ears. "Where are they now?" "Downstairs. They just removed their disguises." My stomach twisted. "I'm so sorry," Marcus said. "We're containing them until we speak with you." "It's them," I whispered. "My mother and sister. Go, don't let them near any clients. I'll be right down." He hurried away. I stepped into the hallway, inhaled once deeply. My throat burned. My pulse hammered so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I knew instantly, painfully, what was coming. I walked downstairs. Halfway down the floating staircase, I heard my sister's voice echo across the grand living room. "There she is," Brianna shouted. "Everyone, that's her. The one who stole from her own family." Guests froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. Every head turned toward me. I stopped on the staircase. The room felt icy and airless, like someone had vacuumed out all the oxygen. My mother stood center stage in the living room, hand on her chest, eyes brimming with dramatic tears. Brianna held her phone up, already live, pointing it at me like a weapon. "Tell them, Lauren," she said loudly. "Tell them how you abandoned us. How you used your own grandmother's death to get attention online." I swallowed the burn rising in my throat. "This is a private event," I said calmly. "You need to leave." "Oh, now she's professional," Brianna sneered. "You're all seeing this, right?" She addressed her followers through the phone. "My sister thinks she's better than us. She thinks money makes her superior." I took another step down, put the phone down. Monica staggered forward, suddenly collapsing dramatically onto the stage sofa. "Oh God," she gasped. "I'm dizzy, I can't breathe. This stress, this ungrateful child, it's too much." One guest gasped. Someone whispered, "Should we call 911? "She's faking," I said automatically, then immediately wished I hadn't, because now it made me look cruel. Brianna swung the phone toward her crying mother. "Look what you're doing to her." It was chaos. Guests backing away, the caterer frozen mid-step with a tray of champagne, Edward Clark staring at me with an unreadable expression that made bile rise in my throat. My career, my reputation, months of work, all unraveling. Then Brianna stepped toward me, her camera inches from my face. "Say something," she taunted. "Tell everyone why you hate your family, why you left us, why you think you're better." I felt the room tilt. A familiar sensation, a childhood one of being cornered, forced into a script she wrote for me years ago, but something in me clicked. Not panic, not fear, clarity. I straightened, lifted my chin, and spoke loud enough that everyone heard. "Marcus," I said, "call the police." A stunned silence rippled across the room. Brianna blinked, thrown off. "What, you heard me," I said. "Call them. Tell them you have 2 trespassers who forced their way into a private event under fake names." Guests murmured. Someone whispered, "Fake names." My mother sat up abruptly, her theatrics forgotten. Lauren, don't you dare and tell the officers, I continued, that both individuals are subjects of an ongoing harassment report and pending restraining order. Monica's jaw dropped. You wouldn't, she breathed. You did this, I said quietly. Not me. A deep voice cut through the tension. Excuse me. Jonathan Pierce, the ultra-wealthy investor and VIP client, stepped forward. I hadn't seen him arrive, but he'd clearly been watching long enough. He looked at my mother and sister with ice-cold disdain. This is unacceptable, he said. Miss Hayes is conducting professional business. Your behavior is borderline criminal. Brianna sputtered. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, Jonathan said coolly. I've dealt with family members like you before. Manipulative, entitled, dangerous. A hush fell. He turned to the room. For what it's worth, Miss Hayes has handled herself with remarkable professionalism. If anything, this circus proves her integrity. My chest tightened. My eyes burned. Jonathan looked at me. Whenever you're ready, I'd still like to tour the property. A lifeline, a rescue, a public declaration that I wasn't the villain they wanted me to be. Marcus and his partner closed in and took Monica and Brianna by the arms. Let go of me, Brianna shrieked. This is assault, you're all witnesses. You entered under false identification, Marcus said calmly. Please step outside. My mother thrashed weakly. Lauren, tell them to stop. We're family. I didn't move. Frank's words echoed in my mind. They're not your family. Security dragged them toward the door. Guests pressed back, whispering, shaking their heads. Someone muttered, What is wrong with them? Just before they reached the exit, Gregory appeared, storming inside like a thundercloud. Get your hands off them, he roared. Lauren, what the hell have you done? Marcus blocked him instantly. Sir, you need to leave. Gregory pointed at me, red-faced and livid. You're destroying this family. Do you understand that you need us? You've always needed us. You think these people care about you. They don't? You think your little friends can protect you? They can't. Each word was a shard, sharp aimed to wound. I walked down the remaining stairs, slowly, never breaking eye contact with him. I don't need you, I said. Not anymore. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. Security pushed them all outside. The door slammed shut. For a long moment, silence held the room captive. I was shaking from adrenaline, from fear, from 28 years of swallowing my own voice. Then Jonathan spoke again, his tone gentle this time. Miss Hayes, he said, shall we continue? I swallowed hard. Yes, I whispered. Thank you. We walked through the rest of the showing together. My hands trembled behind my back, but my voice stayed steady. Guests who had considered leaving stayed. Some asked questions deliberately, offering small nods of support. The open house ended with not one, but 3 offers. Jonathan submitted his at full asking price. When the last guest left, Edward approached me beside the kitchen island. I should fire you, he said. My heart plummeted. But I'm not going to. I blinked. You didn't create this mess, he continued. You handled it, better than most seasoned agents would have. You stayed calm, you protected the clients, you followed protocol. I exhaled shakily. Thank you? He nodded once. File that restraining order first thing Monday. And Lauren, if they show up again, call me. Don't try to handle them alone. That nearly broke me more than anything my family said. Real support always hits hardest when you're used to being alone. As I cleaned up the house with shaking hands, the sun dipped behind the lake. The floor-to-ceiling windows turned gold. I caught my reflection in the glass. My eyes looked different. Harder, sharper, awake. The girl who once apologized for asking about her own trust fund wasn't standing there anymore. Someone else was. Someone who'd finally seen the truth of her family and herself. And someone who was done being afraid. The open house was supposed to be the climax of my career. Instead, it became the climax of my entire life. Because that door slamming behind my mother and sister wasn't just security removing trespassers. It was the sound of a dynasty collapsing, a power structure breaking, a poisonous chain snapping. And none of them had realized yet that everything they'd done to destroy me had given me the perfect ammunition, the perfect witnesses, the perfect proof, the perfect chance to fight back. They thought they'd humiliated me. They thought they'd derailed my career. They thought they'd shown the world I was weak. But what they didn't know was that this was the moment I stopped being scared of them. The moment I finally stepped out of their shadow. The moment everything they'd ever used to hurt me became my weapon. Revenge didn't start with a grand plan. It started with me under fluorescent lights in Patricia Rowe's office, staring at my own life printed in black and white. Your sister did you a favor, Patricia said, tapping the stack of screenshots between us. Most people never get their abusers to document the harassment. On her desk lay everything: Brianna's doxing caption comments, urging strangers to pay Lauren a visit, my dad's text about collecting what you owe us, the police report from my apartment, stills from the open house security footage. Patricia slid a form toward me. Petition for a protection order. No calls, texts, DMs, surprise visits. They stay away. You keep your side clean. My fingers tightened around the pen. If I sign this, there's no going back. She raised an eyebrow. Back to what having your address read to a live audience. You're not starting a fight, Lauren. You're finally letting someone else step in. I thought about my dad threatening to have me declared unstable when I was behind on rent. My mom collapsing on a rented sofa for sympathy, my sister shoving her phone in my face and calling it family time. I signed. The ink looked darker than it should. The court date came fast. In the days before the haze feeds went quiet. No car crying videos, no toxic people quotes from my mother. They're not calm, Maya said, scrolling. They're storyboarding. Let them, I said. We're bringing receipts. Meanwhile, my career kept moving. Jonathan's offer sailed through inspection. Edward forwarded higher-end inquiries with short notes. Take this one. Agents who barely knew my name now nodded in the hallway. The night before the hearing, I sat on my living room floor with two things in my hands: the trust statement and my grandmother's letter. If Gregory ever uses your money for his business or vacations or anything that isn't directly for you, I want you to fight. For years, I'd pretended those lines on the statement were normal. Management fees, family travel, loan to Hayes Enterprises, all signed by my father, never by me. I ran my thumb over Evelyn's shaky handwriting. I'm fighting, I whispered. A little late, but I'm here. The courthouse smelled like dust and burnt coffee. Diane sat on one side of me. Frank, on the other, hands folded like he was daring anyone to try something in front of a judge. Across the hall, my parents stood with their lawyer. Monica had perfected a softer, bruised version of herself. Gregory's jaw clenched and unclenched, like he was in a boardroom instead of a courtroom. Brianna wasn't there. Inside, things moved faster than the dread in my stomach. Patricia laid it out in clean lines: the threats, the doxing, the door kicking, the open house ambush. Screenshots, timestamps, video clips. All the moments they'd used to scare me now, neatly labeled as evidence. My father talked about misunderstandings and financial realities. My mother talked about sacrifice and fearing what Lauren will do next. They never said the words I stole from her. But the judge watched the videos. He read the comments. Their story didn't match the tape. Miss Hayes, he said finally, do you want your parents in jail? The question hit like a slap. No, I said, I don't want them punished. I want them gone. I want to work and sleep without wondering if they'll show up with a camera or send strangers to my door. Silence. Then the scratch of his pen. Temporary protection order granted. No contact, direct or indirect. Any violation will be taken seriously. The thud of the stamp on the paper sounded louder than any of my sister's screaming lives. In the hallway afterward, we passed each other, my parents huddled with their lawyer, me walking toward the exit with Diane and Frank. Gregory caught my eye. This isn't over, he muttered. For the first time, the words didn't wrap around my throat. Because this time, I wasn't leaving empty-handed and shaking. I was walking out with a signed court order in my bag. A lawyer already saying things like breach of fiduciary duty, and forensic accountant, and 10 years of fees and loans neatly tied to my father's name, in a way the IRS would find interesting. I was walking out with a deal about to close, and a client who trusted me more than my family ever had. Most importantly, I was walking out with proof to myself that I could stand up to them and survive it. They thought that pathetic check was the punchline. They thought draining my trust and turning the internet on me would break me until I crawled back and begged. Sitting in my car after court, the order on the passenger seat next to my grandmother's letter, I understood the real twist. They hadn't ended anything. They'd mapped every crack in the image they care about more than me, every fake fee, every loan, every public tantrum with a date and timestamp. They thought they'd arm themselves. All they'd really done was hand me the weapons. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit subscribe. Stories like mine don't end in a courtroom, they keep unfolding in the quiet moments after when you finally learn how to breathe on your own. And if you're standing where I once stood wondering if cutting ties makes you the villain, stay. You're not alone here. This story isn't over, and neither is yours.